Hi everybody, welcome to session 15 in our What Happens When You Give video teaching series, and this happens to be the final video in the whole series. I can't believe we've been going for 15 weeks. The principles that I'm going to unpack in the next couple of minutes aren't just limited purely to the issue of giving. I want to talk about the issue of consistency, and that is obviously, it does affect giving, but it affects all areas of life. You know, in our world today where we are bombarded by a get it now mentality, and if you want something, go out and get it, the whole concept of having to be consistent in lifestyle, maintain good choices on an ongoing basis, persevere, all those kind of things aren't always conducive to the culture that we are facing. But by and large, the testimony overwhelmingly of Scripture is that it is important for us as believers, if we're going to be successful in it, really in any arena of life, to embrace this concept of consistency, of sticking at things when the going gets tough, of perseverance. And so I want to just unpack in the next few moments a few scriptures about that. You know, it's one thing to start tithing, it's another thing to keep tithing, and yet God would expect that we would always apply ourselves consistently to good choices we make. Perhaps at this time of year, as we head towards Christmas season, there are extra pressures on us financially, and they can kind of crowd out the steps of faith that we have made in decisions that we've made. And I want to inspire you throughout the Christmas season and into the new year to stay consistent. Don't drop the ball in any area of your life spiritually just because we're heading into a holiday season. I think there's great benefit in being consistent in our prayer life, in our giving life, in our Bible reading, in our showing kindness to other people, going out of our way just to do the essential basic things of Christianity. 2 Corinthians 15:7 says, "But as for you, be strong and do not give up, for your work will be rewarded." You're going to see this come up over and over again. This concept that if we are consistent, we are strong, we are faithful, then in the end, maybe not immediately, but in the end, God will reward us for that work. There will be plenty of times in life when we feel like giving up. We feel like quitting. We feel like stopping. And God is saying over and over again, if you will push through those things, if you will be faithful, if you've made a decision to commence a lifestyle of tithing, and when you feel as though it's tough, you just keep going, saying, God, I've made a choice to be consistent in life, then in the end, we will be rewarded. 1 Corinthians 15:58 says, "Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm, let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain." You're going to see a few verses here that it's almost like Paul repeated this in various different ways throughout all his letters. I imagine it was something he had to say consistently to people, because when the going gets tough, people pack up, and Paul was always saying, stick at it. So he says, therefore, stand firm, let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord. Not partially, fully. What are you doing in terms of your tithing, in terms of your life? Is it fully to the work of the Lord? Because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. Colossians 23:24 says very much the same thing. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. I love that. I think in the context of giving, when I'm giving, I'm not serving human masters. I am serving the Lord, and God will reward me. Galatians 6:9 is one of Jill's favorite verses. It says, "So let's not get tired of doing what is good, for at just the right time we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up." James picks up the same thing as well, the same theme, and he says in James 1:2, "Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way," not if troubles, when troubles of any kind come your way, "consider it an opportunity for great joy." I don't know about you, I haven't always found that easy to do, but he's saying when trouble comes, see it as an opportunity for joy. Why? Because he says, "For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow." So if you're tested in the area of your giving right now, you've commenced tithing and you've seen some tests, James would say this is actually an opportunity for your faith to grow, your endurance to grow. And he goes on in verse 4 and he says, "So let it grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing." So if you give up at this point, if you say this is all too hard, you'll miss out on what God has for you. But if you embrace the opportunity to trust God in any area where you feel like the temptation is to pull back or stop doing it or stop living that way, in the end, James promises that you'll be rewarded, and your faith will actually produce in you what God intends it to produce. One last verse, Luke 16. This one is specifically about money, but I think it's worth mentioning, especially as we head into Christmas season and or as I say, all those pressures around giving. Luke 16, this is the words of Jesus. He says, "No one can serve two masters, for you will hate one and love the other. You will be devoted to one and you will despise the other. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to money." No one can serve two masters. I looked at the meaning of the Greek word that we translate serve there, and it's also the same word translated enslave at the end of that NLT version, and the word is douleo, and it can mean an involuntary or a voluntary slavehood, and there's quite a number of meanings, but the ones that really stuck out with me was it says to yield to or to give oneself up to. So Jesus is saying no one can who gives oneself up to money can also give oneself up to God. And so I want to challenge you around that. That is why I think tithing has so much power. If money has you, and you might think, oh, money doesn't have me, but if you're enslaved to it, if you're giving yourself up to it, if you're concerned about not having enough money or allowing money to dictate your lifestyle, then you have really given yourself up to it. And Jesus is quite harsh there, quite strong. He says, you can't do that and give yourself up to God. You've got to choose one or the other. And so that's why I think tithing is important, because what it does is it breaks the shackles of that slavery to money. Because if you can give it away, then money hasn't got you, you've got it. You can use money rather than money use you. And so as we close this series, I would hope that many people, I know many of you have commenced a lifestyle of tithing or have become more consistent in your tithing. But as we close out this series, as we head into this season, could I urge you, if you are tithing, don't give up now. Stay consistent, because you'll miss out on what God has for you. And if you've gotten all the way through the 15 weeks and you haven't commenced a lifestyle of tithing, why don't you do it today? Why don't you begin today to say, that's it, I'm going to get consistent around this thing, because I'm not going to let money enslave me. I am going to use money for the purpose of God's kingdom, and I'm going to yield myself or give myself up to God instead. God bless you. Talk to you soon.